It was constant. But what did happen, every time they'd been that night, we would end up with severe activity in the house. Stuff started getting to move around a lot more than it did. A lot more noises. We'd be woken up in the middle of the night with all sorts of things going on. The kids were being very badly affected. My wife would go to put him to bed and he'd be going, "Who's that nasty man behind you?" You know, he'd be seeing things in the room.
Welcome, everybody. This is Simon Gilbert with Inspired. Inspired, if you're new to us, is all about meeting different friends of mine from across the spectrum, all sorts of different occupations and life experiences who've had profound, moving, powerful encounters with Jesus and who have done beautiful things in their lives. And hopefully in the next 50 minutes or so, you will leave very, very encouraged and stirred. I've no doubt you will. And this is a topical one. It's a seasonal one, basically, this week, Halloween. We're probably, being offered chances to buy all sorts of paraphernalia in the shops and sweets, candy, whatever. And is it just some innocent festival, or is there more to it? So last year we had a very powerful one, from a witch to a prophet. That was one of the most listened to podcasts. And in a similar vein, this week we've got with us someone who's experienced very powerful demonic occultic stuff. So welcome, Kevin Wilson.
Hi there, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I know a lot of your story. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. And literally, I think we'll just crack on. So give us a bit of context, background, childhood. Go for it.
Yes, I was brought up in a non-church going family. It was mainly because my grandparents were born in Scotland, wanted to get married, and the Catholic-Protestant relationship wasn't going to happen. So when they had my mother, eventually, they said that they wouldn't insist on anybody going to church. When they grew up, they could make their own choice. Mm-hmm. When I was born, my parents did the same with me. So I never went to church at all as a child. But as I got old, I was going to 8 and 9, that sort of age, I was having spiritual inclinations. I didn't know what they were, but I just felt there was something out there. I'd not been to church or anything like that. But when I was about 9, I was playing with a friend one day and we were just messing about on a tree. And I felt we could connect. It sounds a bit stupid, but I felt this sort of spiritual connection. I couldn't read his mind as such, but I was getting sort of signals from him. And I asked him what he'd just thought, because I said something about his sister. And he said, yes, he just thought about her. So we practiced this a bit more and found it worked to a fashion. So that night we went home and we tried it at a distance and it worked. And it became a bit of a game for us, when it was sort of 9 or 10. I mean, it does sound a bit bizarre now, but we used to do it. And as I got older, I just got better at it. I didn't think it was spiritual at all. I said I had spiritual feelings. I just thought there were psychic feelings. Even though I was young, I was always interested in science. And I thought we'd all be psychic or whatever, ESP, extrasensory perception, that sort of thing at some point in our evolution. That's how I saw it. And I thought, perhaps just one of those people who got it before other people. So to me, I just saw it as a scientific evolutionary gift I had. And as I got into my teens, it was great fun at school. I could earn cigarettes by guessing people's birthdays, numbers, they'd write down, colours they'd write down, anything like that. And nothing serious, but it was just a bit of a game, really.
So when did you actually sort of start tapping into sort of disciplines of New Age and occult practices?
I think until I was quite a bit older. As I say, I spent almost childhood sort of doing this sort of thing. And then as I sort of got interested in girls and that a bit, and playing in bands and that sort of thing, it sort of just went away. And then I think I was about 19, I saw a pack of tarot cards advertised. Now, as I said, I didn't believe in anything spiritual, but I just had this sort of yearning to buy them. I sort of thought, well, perhaps concentrate your mind to make this psychic ability work. So again, I still believed it was science. I had no church upbringing at all. I got nothing spiritual in my background at all. So I got these tarot cards and I tried them and I found they worked. I could do it. It was better for me. So I thought, it does make you concentrate better. And then I started doing readings for people and I soon got quite a following. People were always coming around for readings. And, it's quite amazing how powerful that is. I'll say one thing about them, though. People would always come and ask a question. I don't ever remember answering the question they asked.
Right.
But I would be able to tell them something about themselves I couldn't know. And that's the hook of it. And they keep coming back for more.
Can you remember sort of some of the most noteworthy things you were able to predict, or?
So it wasn't predictions. Often people would come and say, I'm going for a job interview, should I take it? That sort of thing. When you get into the reading, I would sort of become knowledgeable about something in their past. So I'd start talking about that. Of course, that's really fascinating to somebody, something you couldn't know. And the most significant one I do remember is there was a couple came to me and they were getting married. They were asking questions about, I think, the jobs and the future and getting married and that. And I happened to mention that the guy had been married before and he hadn't told his fiancée.
Right.
And that came out in the reading. And that information just came out to me. I mean, it was quite an interesting experience between those two at that point.
Yeah.
They did get married in the end, so it caused a problem, but he just hadn't told her. But having been able to tell somebody something like that, which he hadn't told anybody that I knew, and certainly hadn't told his fiancée, that gives you sort of a feeling of power, and that's the attraction of it.
And were you, in Africa, my context of witchcraft is they do it to make money. Were you making money on it?
No, there was a sort of occult sort of thing I'd followed was that you just did it, and if somebody gave me something, yes, it was. I never saw it as a job, if you know what I mean. Because I still saw it as science at that point.
Strange. So did someone then take you under their wing and mentor you?
No, something quite incredible happened. I was doing a reading one night, and throughout the reading, I won't say what it was, the name of this business kept coming to me, and a town somewhere up north of England. It just kept repeating itself to me all the way through the reading. And after they'd gone, I went to the phone. This is of the days of direct inquiries and proper phones. And I rang direct inquiries and see if this company existed, and it did. So I got the number and rang it. And it just had an answer phone message. It basically saying if you're a member, just leave your membership number and order. And if you're new and you want to go on the mailing list, leave your details. So I just had to. It was amazing. This had come from this. I just had to do that. So I leave my details. Then a few days later, this massive package comes. And when we opened it, my wife and I, we were just in stitches. It was unbelievable. The company turned out to be the biggest occult mail order suppliers in Europe.
Wow.
And what we'd received was all these massive broadsheets of spell equipment, kits, paraphernalia, herbs, candle order, anything you wanted to do with occultism was available from this company. Honestly, as I say, I was still at that point seeing it as science, and we thought it was crazy. We sort of thought it was like some of the Hammer horror films sort of thing. We just thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
But it was so intriguing. I kept reading through it. And then, quite bizarrely, there was a course being offered, which is pretty much like an alpha course in a church, but it was for basics of the occult.
Wow. So hang on, you were doing a reading on someone else and a phone number, like 07892, whatever.
Well, no, the name of the company and the town came to me. So I went to direct inquiries and got the number.
Wow. Crazy.
But I did check it out recently, actually. The guy's retired now, but it was at the time, because he's going back quite a few years, it was the biggest occult suppliers in Europe, actually, at the time, mail order. So
interesting that your reaction, your wife, you said you cracked up in stitches, so you found it funny, you didn't find it sinister?
No, when you see that, as I say, I was very scientific. I was planning to do a degree in physics at the time, but I didn't. I went into electronics, then eventually into music and a recording studio later on. But I was very scientific, and I had no church upbringing at all. I was pretty atheistic, I would suggest, is the best way of describing me. And looking at this stuff, it was just like a joke, candles and just candle magic stuff and all these books. And it was fascinating. I thought there was so much of it. So it wasn't just it was a massive pack, and there was dozens and dozens of books and, well, not book, but booklets and bits of information about it and all the stuff you could buy. That was the most fascinating thing. I couldn't believe how much stuff was on sale for this.
Yeah. So that stuff would still be going on. There'd be some store somewhere sending out.
Oh, yeah. I was having a bit of a research last year, and I was surprised how much easier it is to get now.
Yeah.
I'll come to that later on, but I ordered this beginner's course because, I mean, it was just for a laugh, you know. I just thought the cards had worked, so let's see what happens with this. And it came, and it started with what was called candle magic, which is a basic sort of practice. I started doing that, and like the cards, I found that worked for me too. And then I started ordering more stuff, and in the end, over a couple of years, I actually turned one of my spare bedrooms into a full temple.
Wow.
And I had then accepted it was spiritual by that point.
Because you'd seen so much stuff happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when did it stop being a laugh and being dark?
Gone on for a few years. And as I say now, looking back, it's like a drug. I mean, you end up having to do it. I mean, I got to a point, I'd done this very sort of lengthy meditation, and I suddenly couldn't remember anything about it. And it suddenly felt like I wasn't in control anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm doing these practices every day. I'm doing these rituals all the time, but I'm not getting anything out of it. I feel like I'm doing it for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly just felt I'm not in control, so I'm stopping. And as soon as I stopped doing it, that's when things changed.
Go on, what happened?
Well, suddenly, first of all, we started getting things moving in the house, which generally did happen. Electrical things were switching on and off, like the kettle would just turn itself on. You'd hear that in the kitchen. The video recorder would start playing and switch itself off. And, you know, this started and it got worse and worse. The longer it went on when I was not doing it, the worse these things got. So we started getting things physically moving, not like the film Poltergeist, nothing like that, but stuff was moving around. We'd come back in and find things were in different places.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it was quite bizarre. It does sort of screw you up. And then we start getting bad dreams. That was the next thing. My wife and our son at the time as well, he was only a young child, 1 or 2. And we started having nightmares. He was waking up screaming. My wife started having nightmares. I was having nightmares. And it was constant. And there was this constant sort of pull to say, you know, come back, start doing it again. I mean, I would say it's a bit like drugs. You know, you felt you should go back. But what I felt was, if it's so powerful now on me, I'm not going back. You know, I'm going to stop this. I'm not going back. And it got to a point where it was so strong. I mean, I was feeling suicidal, to be honest. I thought there's no way I can stop this. But it was the fact that I did accept it was spiritual now. And I thought, if it's this powerful while I'm here, if I was to die, what's it going to be like on the other side? And that was the only thing that would stop me doing anything serious. And it just went on. And also, though, our business started getting affected. I had a recording studio at the time, and contracts started getting lost in the post. Things you think it's just coincidence, but we started logging all this because it was happening so much. And every month, something significant happened to affect the business financially. A car got written off outside my house by a drunk driver. The car was parked. It got completely written off. He wasn't insured. That was 1 month. Massive contract got lost the next month. And it would just go on and on and on. And I was constantly getting this thing, you know, you've got to come back. The only way you're going to stop it is to come back. And to me, that was the last thing I was wanting to do, because I was thinking, now this is really seriously dangerous. There's got to be a way out of it. But I had no idea what to do.
Yeah. Before we come to the sort of solution, as it were, can you talk just about a few of the occult arts that you were very skilled at and what sort of manifestations there were? Yeah,
I mean, invocation and evocation is when you draw spiritual forces either into yourself to gain knowledge for spiritual to improvement, basically, to give yourself more power. Where you effectively are summoning demons. And they're real spiritual entities. You see them, you respect them. There's ways of containing them. That's the art of it. And that's the dangerous thing where it can go wrong. That's ritualistic magic, as it's called, and that's what I specialised in. It's a soul practice, but it's very high level spiritual stuff. Basically, I don't want to go into too much detail because the trouble is it does sound rather fascinating.
Yeah.
And it is. And the way I sort of felt was it's a bit like spiritual lion taming.
Right.
You have to really be on top of the procedure you're going through and the ritual you're doing to keep control of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can glean amazing knowledge from it.
Yeah.
And power, basically. That's what you do. That's what the draw is, just that you've got more power. Gives you more psychic ability.
And that power can be used, white magic, black magic can be used for good and for evil, is that right?
Yeah, well, in the occult circles, they don't talk about black and white magic. It's basically said it's all magic.
Mm-hmm. It's
how you use it, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
So, all the occultists will say there's no such thing as black magic. What's always used is they'll say a knife. You can use a knife for cutting food or stabbing somebody.
Yeah.
It's still a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how magic is. It's what you do with it. I would heal people with it. I would do that. That was one thing I was quite good at. Looking back, though, now, it's interesting, having come out of it, when I healed somebody, if somebody came to me with a broken arm, say, whatever ritual I did on them would take the pain away, but it wouldn't fix the broken arm.
Right.
Whereas healing now, as I understand and know, is proper healing. And that's the deception of these things. They make you feel good because you've achieved something, but you haven't actually solved the problem.
Yeah. Hi folks, greetings from Bujumbura, Burundi. You might hear the tooting of horns, the bustle of traffic out there. I'm looking out across the capital right now, and it's been so encouraging to see the way God is at work here amongst the poorest of the poor. And if you'd like to support us, you could through prayer. We'd be really grateful. We believe that is the absolute bedrock of our work. So if you want to, that's greatlakesoutreach.org/pray. Or if you could spare a few quid or a few bucks, then, financial support obviously makes a massive difference in the poorest nation on earth. So if that's the case, greatlakesoutreach.org/inspired. I'll put those links in the show notes. That's greatlakesoutreach.org/inspired. Thank you so much. In the meantime, let's get back to the podcast. So you're all having nightmares, things going horribly wrong with your business, everything's sort of going south. Was that the moment you're like, come on, cried out to God or what?
No, because I still didn't. I accepted there was God, but I'd only come up from the occult side of it. So the occultism to me, as I think most people would say it, it's like spiritual anarchy. Everything's out there. Mm-hmm. So to me, my understanding when I was doing the occult, God, the devil, demons, angels, whatever, they're all just spiritual entities of equal status.
All right.
And it's which path you follow. That's how it's done in the occult. It never crossed my mind to actually call out to God at all. Mm-hmm. But what happened was, and this is when you say how God does work, I was in the music business and they got a studio and there was a singer I was working with and him and his girlfriend were going to have a baby. Well, they just had a baby actually, and they were going to have him christened. So they asked me and my wife if we'd be godparents, mm-hmm. which meant absolutely nothing to us. I thought, yeah, fine, okay. So they booked us in, and it's in Leicester. It was a very high Anglican church, and that would be probably the third time I've been to church in my life, apart from a wedding. Mm-hmm. And we go in there, and it's this really high Anglican ritual, and service, not ritual. And so they're in robes, there's incense, there's bells. Amazing altar setup, and I looked at this and I thought, this is like an occult ceremony. Right. That sounds really bad to say now, but what I was seeing there was similar to what I've been doing: the candle setup, the altars, the incense, and other goblets, and everything. Everything would look to me like a spiritual ceremony, and that was the first time it actually occurred to me that churches were spiritual. Mm-hmm. Up until then, I thought they were just old people's meeting clubs, social clubs. Mm-hmm. Then when the baby was christened, that reminded me of a sort of protection ritual you do in the occult as well. So me and my wife came out of there thinking, blimey, this is protection, this christening stuff, spiritual protection. So my wife went to see our local vicar in the village where we lived and said we wanted the kids' christening. And there's an interesting point is, where we'd just been to a christening where they booked in, anyone could just turn up to the service, do the christening, and away you go. The vicar in our village wouldn't do that. He said we had to do a course.
Mm-hmm.
So he's coming around to our house doing a course over several weeks.
Good man.
And during this time, I told him what I'd been doing because, as I say, I didn't see anything wrong with it. And then the first thing he showed me was Deuteronomy 18:10, which is, let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or is a medium or spiritist or consults the dead. I thought, from it, the Bible's telling me I shouldn't have done any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never seen the Bible, never read the Bible. That's obviously seen the Bible. I'd never read a Bible before. And that just blew me away that was in the Bible.
Yeah.
So he sort of got quite seriously involved with helping me sort of get out of this.
I'd love to be inside his head when you're just innocently telling him all that you've been up to. Seriously. So go on. How did you get out of it then?
Well, I didn't know what was going on at the time, but it's his Anglican church. As I know now, all dioceses have a deliverance minister,
mm-hmm.
which I didn't know then, which is effectively, all that means is an exorcist, I suppose. The words tend to be used in church circles. And he has to go to the bishop and tell him that he's got somebody in the parish that's been involved in this. And so he said to me, he's got a friend who was a bit more knowledgeable in the subject. Would it be okay if he joined us in the meetings? Well, I found out many years later this was a deliverance minister, so this guy comes along as well. And we're doing these meetings every week, we're doing prayer. And I definitely now wanted to be out of it. There's no doubt about that. I was looking for a way out, but it was very, very hard.
Were you scared?
I don't think I had to explain it. There was this constant sort of threat in the back of your mind that you're doing the wrong thing. I was sort of scared that it would be the wrong decision to make, more than scared of something going wrong, happening.
Right.
And I'd have this, you got this rock and roll lifestyle in the music business. You go to the church, you've got to give all that up. You have to live like a monk. Your life will be over. I was sort of getting this sort of stuff coming to me.
No. Yeah.
It was quite bizarre. It was constant. But what did happen every time they'd been, following that night, we would end up with severe activity in the house. And, a lot of stuff started getting to move around a lot more than it did, a lot more noises. And, we'd be woken up in the middle of the night with all sorts of things going on. The kids were being very badly affected. My wife would go to put him to bed and he'd be going, "Who's that nasty man behind you?" You'd be seeing things in the room.
Yeah.
Then one day, the vicar, Alan, his name was, he rang me up and said, "Are we okay for the meeting this week?" And I said, "Can we do it at the church?" I said, because it was pretty unpleasant in the house after the last meeting. I said, I just felt, let's do it in the church. And he said, "Which one?" And we're in a little village parish of 3 churches. And I said, the one I picked was the oldest one, so I felt it had more power. Now it's a bit crazy now, but it's like this 12th century church. I thought, yes, let's go to that one. So we're going there, and they start going through the normal process of what we were doing. They're praying with me and praying over me. And this for the first time then they started praying in tongues, which I thought was Latin.
Right.
And they're praying over me. And then I just got this very powerful experience. I started seeing things around me, like coming towards me. And then I just felt that, I honestly felt I saw Jesus for a flash instant in front of me. I saw this person appear, point at me. I went flying, and I just felt something like it was ripped out of me. And I went about 10 foot across the front of the altar, and I just burst out laughing.
So you literally flew across the room?
Yes.
Jeez, wow.
And I was just laughing. Alan, the vicar, he carried on praying. David, the deliverance minister, he said, "It's gone, hasn't it?" And I just said, "Yeah, whatever it was, yes, it has."
Wow.
And Alan said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Baptise me." So I was baptised there and then.
Wow.
But also I just felt I was born again at the same time. It was just this wham, this massively powerful experience just happened.
Yeah.
And I felt like I'd had my appendix out, to be honest. I just felt so shook up. I felt like I'd had an operation.
Wow. Do you feel like, and he then presumably explained to you Jesus and the cross and the resurrection and what born again meant?
Not at that time, because we'd obviously talked about that.
Okay.
I'd been reading it in the Bible. I didn't know what it meant, but I did know in myself that's what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And And they gave me a bit of time to recover. And I say they baptised me there and then as well. And they took me home to wife. And as soon as I got home, my wife knew I was different. She just said I just looked like a different person.
Love that.
And she felt the house clear. As soon as we walked in, everything was, all the sort of unpleasant stress that was in the house disappeared.
Wonderful. The one who's in you is greater than the one who's in the world. 1 John 4:4. That's it, isn't it?
Absolutely,
and
yes.
so the nightmares stopped, the poltergeist activity stopped?
Yeah. This is how I would explain it. I mean, I think once you've been there, I think it's a bit probably if you've been on drugs, you always know it's there. But how it used to feel before was I felt I was locked in the room with some entity.
Mm-hmm.
After this, I felt I could see the entity, but it was outside the room and I could see it through the window.
Right.
That's how it felt to me. It was still there, but it couldn't get to me anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's 1 Peter 5, was it 8? The enemy prowls around like an angry lion looking for someone to devour, but he's limited, isn't he? Because you're protected by the blood of Jesus. The weapons we have now as Christians, they're not the weapons of this world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We've got an authority in Christ, haven't we, when we come to him? Absolutely,
yes. And it was just a life-changing experience, that's all I can say. Because what followed was the most incredible thing. That night, I was in the music business, I had a recording studio at the time. I used to write advertising music for companies like Volvo and that. I just did rubbishy jingles and that sort of thing, nothing special. And then I'd probably written words to one song, which wasn't very good. And then about 2 a.m, I woke up with this little tune going through my head and the chorus, and I just wrote it down. The next day, Alan, the vicar, came to see how I was. He was fantastic. He really understood what was going on from the minute he met me, and he handled me all the way through. I think it's probably why I had such a good outcome from it. But I went and played this little chorus to him, because I've got a piano in the house, and I played it to him and said the words, "What do you think of that?" And he says, "Oh, it's just like the choruses we do at church," because back in those days, choruses were quite popular, the short choruses, services. He said, "Well, do it on Sunday," and I didn't think any more of it. Then a few hours later, I felt the rest of the song come to me. So I just played it and I wrote it down. I used to have a little dictaphone, so I was recording it straight onto that. And I thought, that's bizarre. This has never happened to me before. So I've just written this complete song. It was a sort of worship song. It's actually, I thought, I'd not written words, they made sense. The vicar also gave me a Bible. So I was sort of opening the Bible and I'll just make a note of the first reference I saw and associate it with the song. It seemed to connect with it, bizarrely. Then about an hour later, another song started to come to me. And I was just playing them and writing the words down. It was just pouring in. Then over 3 days, 12 complete songs with Bible references, words, the lyrics, everything just came into me like they were downloaded.
Stunning.
And Alan was coming to see me regularly, and I played it to him. And he was absolutely sort of blown away by this. So was I, because I didn't quite understand it. What I'd done, I'd actually written a musical. And I'd never even seen a musical back then. It was the last thing I'd ever wanted to go and see. I was into rock music. But I've written this musical, which is sort of my life story through the eyes of somebody else, which I didn't really understand why that was at the time. I do now. But anyway, so we did that. Alan sort of starts to whisk me around to various people. He took me to Word Music, and Ian Coffey was head of the Evangelical Alliance, because we were up in Leicester in those days. He took me to see him, and I was going to see a lot of people. And the church I was at was a pretty old church. We were the youngest people in it. And Alan hooked me up with the church in Leicester to go to the drama group. So we started rehearsing it, and we actually put the musical on tour. And we toured it around the country quite a bit. And I actually ended up on the Vanessa show back then because of it, which is another story I won't go into now, which is hilarious. Turned into an absolute nightmare for the show producers. They thought they were going to have a bit of fun at Halloween. It didn't turn out like that. But anyway, so that was happening. But one day, there were some students that came to see us, one of the shows. They're from London Bible College. They asked us if we we're going to do it at the London Bible College, because it's a subject they never get taught.
Yeah, interesting.
And they wanted us to show it to the lecturers. So we did it at London Bible College, and apparently it caused great debate for several months afterwards. Which is an important thing. It isn't talked about in church, very, very rarely, which is why people tend to fall into it, not knowing any better.
Yeah. I talk quite a lot about it because I from my African perspective and coming back and sharing stories, because I really want to challenge people. I feel like in the West, it's either an atrophied spiritual muscle or it's just an ignorance. And the Western worldview, the secular humanistic worldview, is such that it sort of often discards that. Now, again, we'll come to it because actually shamanism, as you said, is the fastest growing, on the census, is the fastest growing religion in the UK. But a lot of people just like, so some people listening to this right now be like, flipping it, this is so off my radar of what could be true. Interesting enough, in front of me right now, I've sent out a report recently, because in August we sent out 1,400 plus evangelists in Burundi. We've done this every year for the last 18 years. We've seen all those miracles that you read about in the Acts of the Apostles, and let me just share a couple because they're so edifying. And so this is from August, and it's a different culture from most of us listening to right now. But this is in Makamba, and the dean was like a contemporary Gadarene demoniac, just like in Mark chapter 5. Her father had sought treatment at a medical hospital because of her deteriorating condition, as well as spending all he could on traditional medicine and witch doctors. Eventually, the family gave up. She wandered around Kivoga, deranged and half-dressed, feared and mocked by the whole community. She lived on the rubbish dump. She roamed the streets at night. That's just like the Gadarene demoniac.
Yes.
And when our team of evangelists showed up, they overcame the initial fear, because you'd be bricking yourself looking at someone scantily clad and all that and dirty. They started praying for her. The demons manifested as they said the name of Jesus, but they called on reinforcements. They actually got her to the local church, and it took 3 hours of intensive prayer as they battled through for total deliverance. And suddenly, after the last demon was cast out, her screams ceased. And when she sort of came to, she looked at herself, she began weeping. She had no recollection of what had happened. And now she asked some clothes. And her father, when he arrived and saw her, like in Mark chapter 5, verse 15, it says, in the Gadarene demoniac, in his right mind. Well, when he saw her in her right mind, he was so overwhelmed, he fell to the ground. And our guys shared with him how Jesus had set her free, and he and 7 other people on the spot gave their lives to Jesus. I love those stories. Different context, but it's true, isn't it? Balthazar was last one I'll share. He was a notorious witch doctor in Bugenyuzi, and he ruled the culture by fear, and no one challenged him. Well, one guy showed up, a neighbor showed up, said, "Can you stop doing your witchcraft?" And a few days later, that previously healthy man was found dead at home. So that's the context when our team showed up, and they heard the stories. They decided to camp on Balthazar's hill and pray every night. And when he heard they were doing that, he came out to confront them. But as he approached them, he was overwhelmed by a greater power, and he fell on his knees. And he then asked for prayers. He surrendered to Christ. He invited them back to his home, where his wife likewise repented when she heard what happened to him. A crowd came. They came to watch. They burnt all his charms, and he and his wife repented and came to know Jesus. The community were totally mind blown by his transformation. So there's stories of God at work overcoming Satan across the globe. I just think it's healthy for us, and why I wanted to get you on, Kevin, is that this is in England, this is the Western world, and Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's been around literally forever. Satan hasn't been around forever. He was a created angel who then fell. And yet there is power, and it's limited power, isn't it? It's not all powerful, so we don't need to be afraid. Sorry, I'm beginning to preach. You take on from there.
No, it's fine.
Go on. You feedback sort of what.
Well, the thing I'll say, I find it very frustrating. I mean, I've done a few talks around churches since then, and not done so many recently. But shamanism, a belief system that is attracting young people, particularly at the moment, because I think the earthly sort of save the earth and all that sort of thing. It's appealing of nature. But the real reason is everybody is a spiritual being.
Yeah.
And after I've been to that christening, we thought we had to go to a church. The first church I thought of going to was a spiritualist church.
All right. Because
it said spiritual. No other churches said anything like that. All I would see outside most churches is coffee mornings, kids groups. As I said, I thought there was old people's meeting clubs or whatever. Even our own church, I brought this up where I go now. Nothing wrong with the church, I'm not criticising it, but I'm saying just up the road from it, there's a shop doing Reiki, and they've got a big sign up saying they're doing spiritual activities. So if you're walking down the street and you've got some spiritual yearning, where are you going to go? The church that says we've got coffee mornings, or the shop that says we do spiritual healing.
Interesting, yeah.
And that's why it's on the growth. And that's why church is on the decline, I believe, because people are becoming more spiritually aware nowadays, I think, because the internet is opening it up to that. People are seeing it. Whether they actually know what it is or not, I doubt. But they're feeling a desire for it. And everything else is advertising. Come here for spiritual readings. There's spiritual occult bookshops, Reiki centres, anything like that. They're all over the place. Yeah. Yoga. But nobody says, come into our church if you want a spiritual help. And in fact, there's a church in Cornwall, which I heard about recently. They'd noticed this, and they put a sign up saying, if you're looking for a reading, come in here.
Brilliant, yeah. That's great.
And they suddenly got inundated with people just driving by, seeing the sign and going in and saying, oh, do you do tarot readings and stuff? No, but we'll read to you from the Bible. But people were actually responding to that sign, so that shows people are looking for it.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me of friends who go to psychic fairs and offer readings, and what they essentially do is prophetic words and speak psalms over people and have great response. And I love it when people come up and say to them, wow, your aura is much bigger than anyone else's here. I mean, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There's another thing, church, my experience of church generally, it isn't talked about. A lot of churches don't want to talk about it, and some refuse to actually talk to me about it. I don't know why there's a fear. I don't know if it's fear or ignorance. I'm not quite sure what it is. The thing I always point out is it's about 23% of Jesus's miracles in the Bible are all about demonic deliverance.
Yeah, yeah.
So either he wasn't telling the truth, or there's something to this.
Yeah, well, it is a real blind spot, and the things you say there, it's fear and ignorance. And so sharing your story here now, I thought was all the more really important. Hey folks, looking ahead to 2024, I'm planning my speaking schedule. So whether it's a Sunday service or men's breakfast, evangelistic event, youth, whatever, do get in touch at info@greatlakesOutreach.org. And hopefully I, myself, or one of our team of great speakers at Great Lakes Outreach will be able to come along and share with you. Get in touch, info@greatlakesOutreach.org. Maybe see you next year in the flesh. Let's get back to the podcast. So, this week is Halloween, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember a pastor at a previous church saying to me, Halloween is the one night when I can not be considered a weirdo visiting every house on my street. And so there's an opportunity, isn't there, at some level, but is it just an innocent festival? Can we treat it as an innocent festival, or is it a whole lot darker?
Well, I mean, it is a very serious occult celebration. I mean, it's based on Samhain, which is the passing through into, it's not an area I'm specialised in, but it is passing into the new life, the afterlife, and that's what it was supposed to sort of, don't know the exact specifications of it, but Halloween itself is a Christian festival. It's All Hallows Eve, and it was set up to combat Samhain. The name, everybody thinks Halloween is the occultic or whatever fun night that everybody has now, but it actually was a serious festival for the occultists, or paganists, I should say, in the old days. Halloween was set up by the church to combat it. And they say it stands for All Hallows Eve, which is All Saints' Night, which is basically what it was. The trouble is, when things get commercialised, like Christmas, they desensitise everybody to the spiritual side of it. And now it's just become a kid's party, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. So nobody knows what's behind it at all anymore. In fact, I was in the shop this morning, funnily enough, and this woman was with a kid, and he sort of said, oh, can I get something like that? And she goes, oh, my favourite time of the year, Halloween. I thought, it's quite bizarre, isn't it? People now take that as more important than Christmas.
Yeah. So Christian churches, evangelical churches particularly, would routinely have a light party instead. Is that what you'd endorse?
Yeah, but I think it needs to be more than that, because that doesn't really tell people what we're talking about. We're just saying that. I've never actually been to one, because I've never been. I've no idea what goes on at them, but I imagine it's just a typical sort of youth service type thing. But there's no teaching that the occult is wrong and what the occult's really about. I mean, the Bible's full of it. I mean, the Holy Spirit is spiritual, and so are the bad things that are spiritual. And ignoring them is not the right way of going about it, and just covering them up, because that just leads people to go into it. And I say people looking for spiritual depth will go to an occultist or spiritualist church or something like that. It's openly saying, we do spiritual things. Churches need to switch on and become spiritual.
Yeah.
And it'll attract a lot more people. That's what I believe.
Yeah, well, Kevin, may we hear that loud and clear. Church leaders are listening to this, because, you go into any sort of mainstream bookshop right now, or even shops that aren't even concentrating on books. There'll be some paganistic books, there'll be some Wiccan books, some Reiki stuff. It's so mainstream and acceptable, and people are being bombarded with it. It's so normalized, and yet it is deeply damaging and destructive. Kevin, I want to hear about your post-conversion, post-exorcism. So, this Into the Light musical comes into play. You're sort of almost like downloaded. It's almost like the Lord took what was a gift being used by Satan and the dark side, if you like, and he redeemed it. Would you see it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I still find I don't feel I wrote it at all. I feel like I'm a music producer. I just want to feel like I produced it for somebody else. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So thousands of people get to be blessed by it around the world. I mean, it really went around the world, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, after we did the tour, of the UK, after 2 or 3 years, it was quite hard work, and so I just felt it's time to give it a break and come back to it in a few years. And that went on to be a lot longer than I expected, and it was getting on for 10 years actually. And I sort of felt it was time to record it properly, because we did it as a stage show, so we had backing tracks and that. So I thought it was time to record it. So there's an interesting story here as well. I'd moved into Devon, where I live now, sold studios, wasn't involved with music business. I still was involved in music management, but I wasn't involved in recording anymore. And I get this desire to record this very complex album. And the first time in my life, I've got no recording equipment. And I certainly wasn't in a position to afford any either, what it costs to set up that sort of studio. And to cut a long story short, we've been involved in the sale of some property, and we got some letters kept coming from the solicitor, which we thought was just a bill, so we've been ignoring it. And finally got around to opening it up. And we've been praying about this recording. So, it was quite clear if we should do the recording. I thought, how are we going to finance it? I had no idea. Well, eventually the wife decided to go through all the posts from the solicitors and find what they're writing to us for. They said they'd made a mistake. Here's a check. We owe you some money.
Brilliant.
And it was just what we needed to set the studio up.
Fantastic.
So I did that, and then spent a year recording the Into the Light CD. The minute I'd finished recording it, I mean, this is going back to about 2006, the internet wasn't quite what it was, and MySpace was like the thing you put music on in those days. I posted some links to it on MySpace. Within days of it going on the internet, I got a call from a company called Hope TV in Bangalore.
Right.
Well, they rang up and said, well, I understand you made a film about the occult. And I said, no. So they made a radio drama. It's a radio drama, really. And they said, oh, we'll pass this on to our radio ministry then. Then they got in touch. I said, oh, we'd like to hear this. So I posted them a CD, as you did in those days. And they then got in touch and said, oh, this is fantastic. We've passed this over to our live ministry. And they got in touch and said, would you come over and perform extracts from this on a tour of India?
Brilliant.
And I thought, well, of course. But it was for a Christmas show, which I thought was really bizarre. They have this massive Christmas show called Gloria Down. It's like 10, 20,000 people at each show. Which I wasn't expecting that, actually. I was quite shocked when I found we were performing to that. So I get there and we do the performance in Bangalore. While I'm there, the people that organise it start taking me around these churches that they were dealing with people that had come out of Hinduism, where there was fire walking or self-piercing, that sort of thing. Because I couldn't understand why they wanted us to go to a Christmas show. It didn't matter in India because it's the spiritual stuff going on all year round. And so what I wanted to do was to meet people that had gone into church, that had come out of those sort of forms of spiritual invocation is what they do. So they can do fire walking and that. And it was quite fascinating. I met so many people to do with that. It was incredible to go to India and find out, again, like you said about Africa, everybody's spiritually aware in these countries. And I found it was easier to evangelize in India than it certainly is in England, because you can talk spiritual to somebody in India because they accept it as a spiritual dimension.
Yeah.
They might not be following the one you do, but they accept it without question.
Yeah.
And it's the same as what you've been experiencing in India, in Africa, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same. But it was fascinating. So we did this tour of India, and I'm still in touch with them now from that. But also, just after I put this note on MySpace, somebody emailed me from America, this woman, and just a single line email. It says, "How do you know Jesus is real?" So I just responded. I says, "Why do you ask?" Because I thought it was a bizarre question. And she came back with this quite detailed email saying that she was the 4th generation head of this coven from a family of witches. Everybody in the family had been high priestesses in this coven, and that's all she'd been brought up with knowing. But she suddenly felt it was time she shouldn't be doing it. And I said, "Well, you need to get the CD." And she was actually the very first person to buy the CD. Again, this was around the same time I got the call from India. And so she buys the CD, and then about a week later, I get another email from her. She says, "How did you know my story? That happened to me then. That's happened to me. That's happened to me."
Yeah.
And that was when it clicked to me that the story, although it's my story through somebody else's eyes, it doesn't matter whose eyes it is. Because everybody I've found since, and I've heard this hundreds of times, go through exactly the same experience when they come out of the occult.
Yeah.
It's like coming off heroin, cold turkey.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same experience. So I'll say that whoever is in the story, it doesn't matter because it's going to be their experience. Well, it took a long time to counsel her. My son was actually at Bible college at the time. So he took her on as a counselling project. It took 9 months, and after 9 months, she actually gave her life.
Beautiful.
She then went on to contact all the people she knew through the witchcraft sites she was been involved with, and loads of people started coming to us.
Yeah.
And it just went on, and there was a Satanist that she sent to us, and I won't get into that now, it's too lengthy, but she too became saved. But while my son was sort of doing chats with her, he would get interrupted. And she says, "Oh, sorry, someone's at the door." And it would be her high priest from the satanic coven she was in.
Yeah.
Had come round, said, "You're doing something you shouldn't. I felt it. What is it?"
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I didn't know, I only found out this last year, that my son had actually still got all the transcripts of these chats. And he's going to do a book on that. And he's been in touch with the first woman. I can't say her name because she's asked for anonymity. Because since then, since being saved, she's gone from sort of I don't want to have the rude, but hick sort of high priestess in the middle of nowhere. She's now a high-flying lawyer. And she says, she's quite happy for the story to come out, but she doesn't want to name associating with it at all now because it would ruin her career.
Wow. Listen, Kevin, I know you've got loads more stories. There's just a few things that I know people would want to ask, and I want to close out having covered them. I mean, it's a really lame question on one level, but people want to know it. I know. So Harry Potter, that sort of popularized mainstreamed witchcraft, and I know there's a massive upsurge in interest. Is Harry Potter innocent?
Well, it's changed. I mean, that was the first thing I used to get asked of me many years ago when that first came out. And I watch it, and it's, for me, when I watch stuff like that, it's like seeing a pantomime. Because, it's a story that people want it to be like that. I've not seen any of the newer stuff, but I get the feeling it has changed, and it's probably got a bit more serious now. But there's no doubt about it. It definitely leads youngsters into occult interests.
Yeah, that's what Chris Whitcomb said, who last year he said just a massive upsurge in witchcraft involvement on the back of it. So what starts as innocent, so it's a gateway to going into the darker stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, things like, I don't know if you know, you probably do, but it's Hasbro sell the Ouija boards in their toy department.
Yeah, crazy.
And these are classed as children's games.
Yeah.
And that's...
So if people are listening right now and either they know of or they themselves are experiencing the sort of stuff you went through, like nightmares, like stuff moving around their house, or just general fear, oppressive forces, and they want to be free, what would you counsel them?
First of all, start praying to Jesus. Mm-hmm. But they need to find a church that understands the subject as well. Go to church anyway, just go to a church and you'll get led to the right people eventually, even if the church you go to isn't that accepting of it, which unfortunately, I have to say, as many churches aren't. But that'll be this way to start. Go to church, start reading the Bible, do an Alpha course, actually. That'll certainly be a good start for anybody. But do definitely get into church because it will start the process. And if God leads you, if you're praying first, you'll go to the right church anyway.
Can they be in touch with you?
Yes, certainly. I can sort out an email address for people to get in touch if they need any help.
All right. Well, we'll put that in the blurb. And people that are looking at, being more invested in New Age and occult practices, what would you say to them?
It's a deception. I think...
Because the enemy masquerades, the Bible says, isn't it?
Yes.
The enemy masquerades as an angel of light, but he comes to steal and kill and destroy. When he lies, he's speaking his native language. That's what the Bible says, isn't it? Yeah,
if you try these things out, you'll have experiences that you'll think are real and powerful. But it's a deception. And I say it's no different. Taking drugs will make you feel great, but it's not a good thing to do, is it? And nor has anything to do with any of the occult practices. You think it's good, but it draws you in like a drug and you'll become addicted to it. And the longer you stay into it, the harder it'll be for you to get out of it. If you want real peace and real spiritual life, go to Jesus and you'll get everything you need.
Brilliant. Well, bro, I think we'll stop there. That is simple. It's not flowery language. It's just straightforward. Go to Jesus. Jesus rescued you, Kevin, from darkness into light. Your musical Into the Light, we'll put that in the blurb as well. And Kevin, I know that a film is in the offing, and in due course we can promote that, and I'm sure that'll be extremely powerful. And bless you in that project. And thank you for all you do. Keep firing. Kevin Wilson, thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. And this Halloween time, let's lift the name of Jesus, whatever that looks like, being contextually relevant, engaging in our communities, not battening down the hatches and just having holy huddles. We resist the devil, he flees. The gates of hell will not prevail against God's church. I'm just quoting different scriptures there because I think often in this country we're on the back foot. He did not give us a spirit that makes us slave again to fear. No, he gave us the spirit of boldness and of a sound mind. And so let's live in the authority. All authority has been given to us. Well, to the first disciples, that's the Great Commission, isn't it? But delegated onto us. We stand in that authority. We live boldly as agents bringing the kingdom of light into to piercing the darkness. So guys, I hope no one is freaked out, no one is living in fear on the back of what they've heard. I think Kevin's story is just a very measured but beautiful account of the beauty and strength and power that is in the name of Jesus. But it's the same Jesus, it's the same Lord, it's the same gospel, and may we all live like we know this is true. May we not live in fear, may we live in freedom, and may we share this with as many people around us as we can. Listen, I trust you've been encouraged, stirred, eyes open further, inspired. If you want to share this with someone, please do gossip it. Join our WhatsApp community, and you just get one ping a week. We can get you signed up for that. Just go to the blurb. It'd be great if you gave us a great review on Spotify, iTunes. You can be in touch with me at simongilbo.com. I want to thank Adam Thomas Steer for the editing, Mike Sandyman for the mixing. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time. Got another fantastic guest next week. In the meantime, toodaloo.